so we've now got a session of 3 speakers. We're going to have 5 minutes, and we'll take questions in the round table at the end. So we heard about research, and I'm just going to tell you about registries from the UK perspective. And this is called the Rudy study, which is not just FD, it's for all rare and undiagnosed diseases study. And I'll go through the why we set it up, how it works, and what we found. So we set it up because we had very little money, actually it's a recurring theme, so we couldn't set up one registry for every single type of rare bone disease. So we set up one registry, and our main focus was on why should people take part. Often people take part in surveys, they enter the survey and they get nothing back. So the participants said they wanted to be secure and safe. They wanted to see all the data they'd entered so they could use it for their own benefit. They could use that for monitoring their health state. People have used that for getting benefits claims because we're using validated tools. They can use that with their healthcare providers. They wanted to contribute to research, but they also wanted to help design the research. So we work with our patient groups, and most of the papers that we publish have got patients and families actually helping us analyze the data. So how does it work? We use a system called dynamic consent because we realize everyone is different and everyone has different privacy concerns. So some people are very happy. They say, use whatever you want, just get me a cure. Other people are saying, no, I don't want anyone from outside of Oxford, outside of the country or industry looking at the data. So we offer a system where people can choose how much they want to get involved. But the most important thing is they can change their mind. And what we found is when people found out they could change their mind on how much they want to take part, they all said yes to everything, and actually no one's actually changed their mind. But having that option has been very powerful. Then we have forms. It's designed to work on tablets, phones, laptops, whatever you want. And there are general forms that everyone fills in. And then working with the patient groups, we've designed forms specific for disorders. So we have one for fibrous dysplasia, one for rare blood cancer, one for rare inflammation of the blood vessels, and one for mitochondrial diseases. So I'll show you what the FD one looks like. So you get a skeleton. You can click on which part of the skeleton you think is affected. This is all patient and family entered. So we rely on you for accuracy. And what we have actually found is that you're more accurate than the clinical records. And people are actually really concerned of making sure the right data goes in. And you can add in how it's affected your body and then what the consequence of that has been. All of the data you put in goes into the data set, but we also feedback any results. So if you're on any other studies, so you might have been a genetic study or you might have done some other studies, if you are in Rudy, we can send your data to that study and they can then have all of your wider data. So you don't have to fill in the same questionnaires twice. They can just use the Rudy questionnaires. And every time we publish a paper that uses your data, on your page it says, hey, thanks for taking part. This is what we found. And we've taken it forward. If you go to the website, we actually now ask our investigators to do a very short 5-minute video on what they found in the research. You can also add your personal details, but importantly, you can add your hospital, because if you agree, we can contact your doctor and say, look, this patient said they've got this. Can you just give us some more information about it? And usually 1 in 5 doctors respond. 80% of doctors don't respond. So to get around that, what we've also allowed you to do is to actually send us your clinical record as one letter, and we can then upload that into Rudy. So I said the main benefit was actually seeing all your data. So you can give the data back in many ways. So we have an animator, an illustrator, and what he does, he takes complicated forms like the EQ5D and then makes it visual. So here you can see in a snapshot, someone's filled in the EQ5D. It's in different parts of your life, from mobility, self-care, and usual activities. You see this person has got quite big issues around mobility and anxiety, and usual activities not that badly affected. So we do a lot of work in making sure people who take part in Rudy, when we give them the data back, we can make it as useful for them as possible. And then the cool thing is you can press a button and it basically creates a huge PDF, and then you can use that for your doctors or your benefits or your insurance. So as has been mentioned, what have we found with it? Well, it took ages. We're working with Alison and with Tahina Spencer, and we actually pulled together the data from Rudy and from the FDMAS, or the FDF as it was known then, consortium, and we were the one of the early groups to show that actually the type of pain is very different, and it is really high in fibrous dysplasia Mucuna syndrome. And this is really important because it changes how doctors should treat you. Some of the treatments of pain do not work in neuropathic pain, so you'll get all of the side effects and none of the benefits. And it's gone into the national guideline, and it's been a really useful tool to help design studies, hopefully, going forward. And this is what we're doing. The problem with doing all this data, we don't have anyone to analyze it. So I've now tapped into medical students in Oxford. They love doing research. So this is a medical student-delivered study where they looked at the diagnostic delay, and we had 51 people in the UK who filled in their fibrous dysplasia diagnostic journey questionnaire. And what this shows is if we want to change fibrous dysplasia diagnosis, we've got to hit the orthopedic surgeons. So there's no point having a meeting with endocrinologists, rheumatologists, all of those people. They're not the people seeing the patients. We've got to hit the ortho. So once this is published, we'll then go to our orthopedic community and ask them, look, we've done the study. All of these patients are nearly all coming to you. Can we please talk to you how we can improve that pathway? So who are we? We're a very small group. I just stand around talking about it, but the main people who do the work is Alison. She's the project coordinator, and Nathaniel and Joe are the animators, but we do have a very vibrant patient forum. We meet every 4 or 6 months, and they just tell us what they think's good, what needs to change, and they have a buddy system for getting more services involved. And I also want to give a shout out to all the patient groups. We only work because of the patient groups we work with, and they've been really helpful in bringing us forward. And that's all I had to say about the Rudy study. Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask Andrea to come up to teach us about the FDMAS patient registry.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm here to promote our FDMAS patient registry, which is run by our very own FDMAS Alliance. And I'm one of the members of the steering committee since its inception back in 2016. So, I think Kassim did a great job talking about the goals of a registry. So this is an IRB-approved study, which is for patients and families as well as caregivers to really share their experiences by completing a series of surveys. And our goals include collecting data, of course, about the natural history of the disease, as well as collecting data about the range of treatments, as well as patients' experiences and their outcomes. And one of the most important things that I think comes out of this is really asking patients and caregivers what their needs are and what they want to prioritize as part of what we, the researchers, should be studying. We're also trying to streamline recruitment of participants as well as researchers. And as I mentioned, this was launched in October 2016. So our methodology is that you can go to this website posted here, and you can get to it through the Alliance's website as well. And it's hosted and secured by the National Organization of Rare Disorders, or NORD, and you can also go to their website as well to get more information. But essentially, the idea is that you create an account on the website, you can put your contact preferences in, and you can choose to not be contacted, all the way to wanting to be contacted about potential roles in clinical trials. And it's about 15 surveys, and you can see on the right side the different instruments that we included. They include, from the rare disease repository, of course, the SF-36, a lot of quality of life, brief pain inventory, and the like within the actual registry. So as of now, there's about 1,308 FDMAS patients and their guardians who have created accounts, and all of these registrants have supplied contact preferences for biospecimen contribution and clinical trial recruitment efforts, which is really remarkable. Many participants also went on to complete one or more surveys. So as of now, that's numbers approximately a little over 600. So almost half, which is also really remarkable when you consider that most people don't really like filling out surveys. But you can see in the pie chart on the lower left, this is sort of the distribution. So I would say most of the participants have MAS with polyostotic disease or polyostotic disease, but there's also a fair number of monostotic disease as well, which maybe represents a little bit about what Natasha was saying. But here you can see the ages of participants. Generally, the median's about middle age, and age of diagnosis was pretty young. And then just again, looking at some of our survey response rates, as I mentioned, about 600, filled out at least one survey, but since we have up to, 14, 15 surveys, you can see that number sort of dwindles as far as who, completed everything, because it is quite lengthy. But you can go in and, save your work and as part of the account, and then go back in later and, complete more. But I think the most exciting part of this is that of the 1,308 responses, most want to join clinical trials and also are interested in providing biospecimens, which I think has really great future implications. And then as far as what's come out of the registry thus far, we have 6 main collaborations, which have included requests for patient-level data, aggregate data, as well as recruitment support. And our work has also been included as part of the Critical Path Institute's Rare Disease Cures Accelerator Data and Analytics Platform, which is a really big word, but effectively it's a FDA-approved platform that works with rare disease groups. And below you can see some of the publications. I know there's more publications that are also in the works that are coming from our data. So as far as researchers, we invite you to contact us, through this email address, pi.registry@fibrous-dysplasia.org, and you can obtain de-identified data, get assistance with recruitment, and help to include new survey instruments if we want to do that. So I just want to thank everybody for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions that you guys might have about the registry. Thank you.
So just waiting for pulling up my slides, but I'm going to shortly give you an overview for the European Registry for Rare Bone and Mineral Conditions. And it has this condition-specific module for fibrous dysplasia and McCune-Albright syndrome within the registries. So first, what is the European Registries for Rare Bone and Mineral Conditions? So in 2017, the European Union set out that there was a need for a European reference network for people with rare conditions. And among these, there was a European reference network installed for rare bone conditions and one for rare endocrine conditions. And as part of this European reference networks, we're basically designed around clinical care and improvement of clinical care. It was also set out that there was a need for registries to support the needs of the European reference networks. That was not only to, for instance, count how many new patients are being seen with a certain condition in a certain center, but also it's foreseen in the future that these at least these registries will be used as some sort of benchmarking to highlight the expert centers and also to benchmark a certain grade of clinical care. So that's why the European registries were formed. We are a collaborative platform together with the European registries for rare endocrine conditions, because there's a lot of overlap, of course, between the endocrine and bone part. And we move in collaboration with the European reference network, but we're also open for people who are not actively involved in a reference network, and also for patients and for people outside of Europe. So we also have people reporting from Asia and from Australia. As a part of the European reference network, we have an e-reporting tool, which just simply is a counting of new cases. For that, no informed consent is needed. And then we have the core registry, where we collect a certain amount of core data elements throughout, not only for fibrous dysplasia, but for every rare bone condition of endocrine condition. For that, of course, informed consent is needed, and patients have full access to all the data that is being collected about themselves. It's important to tell you that the core registry is a clinician registry, but there's also a patient part of it, so patients can also fill out prompts and can have a look at what the clinicians are collecting. When we dive deeper into the core registry, we also developed condition-specific modules, where the FDMAS module is one of them, and that was launched in 2022. In the meantime, there were some things going on around in Europe, because when we started, the servers of the registry were located in the UK. Unfortunately, Kassim has left Europe, but is research-wise coming back again nowadays, we heard yesterday. But in the meantime, we had to move the servers from the UK to the Netherlands, so they're currently based in our center in the Leiden University. Further on, there is further integration of the registries within the European reference networks, and also by this reason we have secured funding for at least for another 4 years. And that's also the reason that we can step up and have the joint approaches there. So this is basically what we're, some explanation on what we are collecting and when. We have instructions of the websites. We are incorporating the brief pain inventory, but also quality of life measurements like the EQ5D. For those of you who haven't seen the brief pain inventory before, of course, one of the challenges for the registries for our part was to have freely available questionnaires available in multiple languages. So fortunately, the brief pain inventory is one of them, EQ5D as well. That might sometimes be the fact that we choose a certain type of questionnaire rather than another, because it's simply not available in every language we would like to have it. Just shortly showing how it looks like. It's a very easy platform because we're building everything ourselves. That makes it lower in cost and easily to develop and to adjust. So if there are specific needs for specific science projects, we can easily add a question or add an extra tab on the registry, and we can actively contribute in such a way to active ongoing research. So one of the things that we recently launched is a module of a specific question tab for pancreatic lesions in FDMAS to see how they are developing, if there's any problem at all. We currently also have looked a bit more into depth in the disease characteristics with some additional questions. So it's a very easy platform. And also one of the things is that the clinician platform is of course in English, but the patient-facing side can be adjusted to any language possible. Although some of the translations are still under progress, but I think we're offering now more than 10 languages in the platform. We have a data access committee, so whenever somebody would like to have access to registry data, it goes through the data access committee, and there's also patient representation into the data access committee. It's a publicly funded project, so that means we are open for everybody to do the research with the data, as long as, of course, the needs of the collection are there. So that's also shortly that.